Welcome. In this video, we're going to be doing a review of the process to create an estimate in Function Point and turn it into a job. We'll start by hovering our cursor over the Estimates module. You'll notice options to Find, View, and Add. Hovering over Add Estimate will show us a list of clients that we've looked at recently. If we see the client we're wanting to work with, we'll select them. If we don't, we'll simply click on Add Estimate. This brings us to our Estimate Add page. Any information that we enter here will be carried into the job. We'll give it a name, select a type. Keep in mind that this list may differ from the estimate types in your system depending on the terminology used by your company. We can then select our client. Notice the magnifying glass representing an intelligent field. Clicking on this will show us a list of every company in the system. But we can also enter a short form. Type in part or all of the company's name, and if it's the only result, it will fill in. If there's multiple results, you'll see a list. Same with the contact. If there's multiple contacts, a list will appear. If there's just one, selecting the magnifying glass will fill it in for you automatically. We can then enter our delivery date and other information, such as the category, month to close, and the probability to close, PO number, and an option to relate this estimate to an existing project. We can then enter our description of the estimate. And finally, we'll select the service group and list of services that we're going to be working on. Keep in mind again that this terminology may differ from your system. We'll select the items we need, including internal services and also any external expenses that may be needed. Once we have the items that we need, we'll select Submit, and that will bring us into our Estimate Details page. Notice that in the Relating tabs below, we can see the service group and list of services that we selected on the previous page. Description space is unlimited, and we can expand this to include as much detail as we need. We can also rename the service items. This does not name the default information in the system, it's only renaming the service item for this particular estimate. We can then fill in our values. Notice that the rates are filled in automatically. This is filled in based on the rate category that defaulted for the client we selected. Those rates are established in the admin section. We can then enter our values. We'll say 5 hours for previous job research. Calculates our rate and gives us our total. Let's say we're going to put in 5 hours of sketching and roughs. However, we want to enter an override amount. We can enter a dollar value in the override field to override the dollar value on this line item. We can also adjust the billing rate on the fly. We'll say 15 hours of copywriting at perhaps $125 an hour. However, it's important to note that changing the rate here is only used for estimating purposes. When a staff person enters a timesheet against this service, the rate applied will be the rate in the admin section for that staff person. If we want to use staff rates on the estimate, that option is available. The design service, for example. If I click on the plus icon beside this item, that will create a subunit. I'll create 2, and this will allow us to select staff individuals. We'll say that we'll have perhaps myself working on this. We'll also have one of our senior designers. Let's say Anita. Notice that the billing rates can differ based on the individual. We'll put in hours for each, and it calculates the different rates and gives us our different totals. Notice the date fields. If for any reason you need to enter dates at this stage, this date information will flow into your schedule automatically if you choose to create a schedule later on. But this information is optional, and you don't need to go into this level of detail if it's not required. We can also use role rates. You may not know the individual who will be doing the work, but you may be aware of the role that will be doing the work. Let's use production for an example. I'll select the plus icon again to create an additional subunit. We may then say that we need this work done by a studio technician. Now we may not be sure which one at this point, but we may want to use the rate for studio technician. Selecting the role fills in the rate related to that role. We'll put in our hours, and we can then narrow this down to a specific staff person later on. We then have an example of an external expense. As opposed to the number of hours, for an external expense, we are entering a cost and a percentage markup. We'll enter the cost to our company for the purchase of the expense and apply a markup to our client. The markup percentage will fill in automatically, again based on the rate structure that was selected automatically because of the client that you chose when creating the estimate. Again, those rates and markups are established in the admin section. But we can override this. Notice it calculates the markup and gives us our billable value. Select Save, and our estimate is created. Up at the top, within the action buttons, we have an option to print for client. Selecting this will produce a branded PDF with your company's logo and information. Keep in mind that description space is unlimited for each line item. Furthermore, if we want to adjust the level of information that's being shown here, we can go back into the estimate and select a button called Print Parameters located within the action buttons. This allows us to change the level of detail that will be showing on the client-facing version. I might make a few adjustments, submit, reproduce my client-facing version, and you'll notice that we are now showing additional details. We can also choose to track an approval process. It's not required by the system, but it is available. Selecting an estimate to be approved will mean that it is no longer editable. In order to edit an approved estimate, you will need to create a revision. Notice we are no longer in edit mode. And the button that once said edit now says revise and edit. Once we are ready, at any time, we can select to add job. Selecting add job turns the estimate into an active job in function point. The job is now open, and any of the contacts that we selected in the estimate will automatically be associated with the job. The job is then available, and the scope of work structure will match the estimate that we created. That concludes this video on creating an estimate and opening up a job. Please continue checking out more of our videos for more helpful information on using function point.